Next on Imágenes, racist remarks, hate speeches, trying the limits of our freedom of expression. Saludos, welcome to Imágenes. I'm Miguel Perez. Our constitutional right to free speech. Are some people taking advantage of it and thus putting it in jeopardy for the rest of us? Is it right to scream fire in a crowded theater, even if there is no fire? Is it right to combat racism by making racist remarks that provoke hatred and violence? Where do we draw the line between the First Amendment protections and inciting a riot? Should the guarantees of the First Amendment have some limitations, or should we use our free speech to condemn racist remarks immediately after they are expressed? Those are the questions that have been the source of much debate in New Jersey State College campuses ever since the controversial speech by Khalid Abdul Mohammed of the Nation of Islam at Keene College in Union last November. And that's the issue we'll be examining here today with Keene College President Elsa Gomez. Dr. Gomez, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Let me just quote some of the things that Mr. Mohammed said, because for the few people left in the state of New Jersey who may not be aware of some of the things that he said, and then have you react to it. He made what is considered maybe not racist by everyone, but at least insensitive remarks that offended homosexuals, the Jewish people, Catholics, the Pope. But among the things that he said was he labeled the Pope a cracker. He said that urged black Africans to kill everything that's white. And he called Jews bloodsuckers of the African nation. How do you personally feel about what he said?
Those types of remarks are generally so alien to the world in which I live that my only reaction is feeling sick. There is no room for civil discourse when you reach that level of insult to everyone. My first reaction when I heard the speech was just I was appalled. I couldn't believe that anyone would come to a college campus and invite hate and speak so despicably. And he left out no one. African Americans, homosexuals, Catholics, Christians, the Pope, I mean, Jews, everyone.
Now, when you heard the speech...
The only ones he didn't talk about were Latinos, and I was very happy that that didn't come out.
I'm going to get to that. But when you heard the speech, how long was it after it was expressed, these remarks were expressed, that you heard the speech?
It was a week before we got a legal copy of the tape. And my remarks, which were the first to come out in the general press, a week before the furor broke statewide, were very intense. As I'd said to you, I was absolutely appalled by the level of hate that was spewed on our campus and could not believe that that could occur on a college campus. What we had done before, the research we had done about this individual before he came to the campus, could not have prepared us for the hate and the level of hate and the atrocities about killing whites and everything else that has so incensed everyone.
You have been criticized. You have been criticized for not responding fast enough, and I want to have you respond to that. But first, NJN, of course, has been following the story very closely, and here we have a report by senior reporter Sandra King that we're going to watch now.
White imposter Jew, right in the black community, sucking our blood on a daily and consistent basis.
That's the kind of thing that's drawn national and international controversy to Keene College and the Khalid Mohammed speech.
Miles underground mining diamonds for white Jews. That's why you call yourself Mr. Rubenstein, Mr. Goldstein, Mr. Silverstein.
Some say he should have never been allowed at Kane. But at a public forum in Millburn, the Chancellor of Higher Education maintained that banning any speech, no matter how vile, creates its own set of problems.
The next person who sets the rules of who to keep out might keep out the very people we would like to see on that campus.
Even the American Jewish Committee's expert on Farrakhan, hate speech, and bigotry on campus says closing college doors is not the way to go.
You create a whole brouhaha around the First Amendment concerns. If your rule is that student groups can bring in speakers, they should be able to bring in anyone.
The focus instead is on proper response, on countering expected hate speech even before it's been voiced, and condemning it firmly right after.
You can't wait 5 or 10 days to make a comment. You can't try to put it down the lowest person in the administrative hierarchy. It has to be out there quickly and strongly. And too many college presidents have learned this lesson the hard way.
That's what put Kane President Elsa Gomez on the hot seat. She waited 10 days before denouncing Mohammed, though she says she was just being prudent.
I heard the tape a week later, and I responded immediately. The thing is that at that point it would have been useless. 8 days, 10 days. By the time my response got edited and printed and out, two more days had passed.
Since then, the speech has been condemned not just by Jewish organizations, but by African-American leaders. Everyone from Jesse Jackson to Newark Congressman Donald Payne and the entire Black Congressional Caucus. Even Farrakhan himself, while defending the core of Mohammed's ideas, said his aide had gone too far at Kane and ordered him suspended.
While I stand by the truths that he spoke, I must condemn in the strongest terms the manner in which those truths were represented.
But Chancellor Goldberg's argument in Millburn was not with Farrakhan, but with Elsa Gomez.
This kind of hesitancy in the face of hate speech does not serve us well. Stronger, more effective college policies must be and will be, I assure you, put in place at that institution to create and sustain a climate of freedom and security.
Dr. Gomez, those are pretty strong remarks made by the Chancellor Goldberg,
Yes.
against you. How do you respond?
Well, the Chancellor and I think most people who have bothered to find out details know why the delay occurred. The legalities are what they are. I could not listen to a tape that was not legally released. However, most people don't understand that, they don't accept it, and I have apologized for the delay. I have also immediately put into place a policy which will not hold me hostage in the future in terms of timing. If I'm not at the speech, an official delegate of mine will be there to be my eyes and ears, so that, in fact, if there is something to which I must comment, I will do so immediately.
You are the first Hispanic woman to head a 4-year liberal arts institution in the whole country. But when you get national headlines, it's because of this incident. How does that feel? You have very innovative programs, I should say, at this college.
Well, that's one
that
of the,
are not getting the attention.
That's one of the ironies of the whole situation. When I came on to Kane College, and because I knew what it was and what it meant to the Hispanic community, the minority community, the blue-collar community of New Jersey, I was very proud to be its president. And I determined that before I left, more people would know about Kane College. This is not the way I would have chosen to become a national figure. However, the college is what it is. It's a very important institution. It has won prizes. It is recognized by funding sources. We have some magnificent outreach programs. We have the only dual language, bilingual program for college students, I think, in this part of the country, where you can come in knowing very little English. And while you are learning English, you are also studying in Spanish the subjects that you can, mathematics, science. And when you finally have achieved the level of English that allows you to move into upper division, the transition is very smooth. We have students coming with very little English and graduating in 5 years. That's wonderful, absolutely marvelous. That program has been in place for over 20 years. And most people outside of New Jersey don't know that exists. We have outreach programs that bring us to the schools for early intervention. All the research shows that children at risk respond best when it's done early. And we're out there, and we have the support of the foundation, support of corporations in the state. They know that we are successful. It is unfortunate, and believe me, we are all indignant. The entire college community is indignant that we have been either personally, individually, or as a community tarred by something that is so rare in our entire world. That's not what we're about.
Well, there was another speech at Kane College, and this time it was a response to Mr. Muhammad by Rabbi Avi Weiss.
Yes.
And we have another clip of that, so let's watch that before we go on.
Would you be willing to come back and dialogue with Minister Farrakhan himself? Because basically, I think you're full of crap. And I think Minister Farrakhan would think the same thing. So you shut up.
We are educated, we are adults. I think we should act like adults. And
When Muhammad left this campus, we did not riot, we did not break people, we did not kill white people. I'm glad he came, and I'm sorry that you came here, and I wish you would leave. You can tell the Nation of Islam and the Farrakhans, I won't leave, and these people won't leave.
So feelings at Kane continue to run high, nearly 3 months after the speech that captured the nation's attention.
I find it very disrespectful for you to be here speaking during African History Month.
But Rabbi Avi Weiss had come to give his view of black and Jewish history.
Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman, Jew and black, dying together. We certainly do not deserve, nor will we tolerate any condemnation.
And point by point, over nearly 2 hours, Weiss answered the 3.5-hour speech that Khalid Muhammad gave in this room last November.
As many as 75% of Southern Jewish households held black men, women, and children as slaves.
If one Jew owned a slave, it was one Jew too much. Being about 1% of the Southern population, Jews owned about 1% of slaves.
I thought it was going to be a bunch of white folks here. I just came with my Jew war chest. And I couldn't get a cracker to come in here and do nothing.
The horror of Mr. Muhammad's comments is not only his words, it's that students, faculty, sat by right here at Kane College and cheered. On November 29th, 1993, we saw an echo of things past.
A metal detector and dozens of cops drawn from at least 4 different departments turned out to be dozens more than were needed.
We wanted to make certain that this remains a form of higher learning and not a place where people speak about an incident that occurred to the rabbi, because we failed to hold up our end.
And if Louis Farrakhan comes to Kane, that same kind of security will be in place again. But while word of his visit continues to spread, there's still no confirmation. Just assurance from a college caught off guard last November that if Farrakhan comes, he will be allowed to speak, but this time they'll be ready.
Will he be allowed to speak if he comes again? What are you doing about that?
If he's invited by one of our student groups, and if they follow our procedures, yes, he will speak at Kane College. This time, as Ms. King has said, we are prepared. We were totally caught off guard, despite all of the procedures that we had, totally caught off guard by Mr. Muhammad. But there is one point that I would like to clarify in the rabbi's speech, and it's an impression that a lot of people have, unfortunately. The audience at the Muhammad speech was about 150 people. Only 40, maybe 50 of those were our students. And there were 3 faculty there. Mr. Muhammad had brought with him 2 busloads, and they were the vast majority of the audience. So it's totally unfair to say that faculty and students were out there cheering when, in fact, the cheering was done by Mr. Muhammad's followers.
But how does that happen? How do they get to bring outsiders into a college campus to do this kind of a rally?
There are 2 open forums in a democracy. One of them is a college campus, the other is a street corner. So when we have an activity, it is open to the public. We cannot prohibit anyone from coming to speak or coming to listen to a speech if it is an open speech. There are different types of activities. This one happened to be ticketed but some of the tickets were sold off campus.
Has this exacerbated the racial tensions on the campus? Ms. King just reported that feelings still run high.
Feelings still run high because we are a very culturally diverse group, a community of many, many people with the entire spectrum of perspectives. And yes, feelings run high. However, one of the things that's admirable about Kane College is that we continue to do what we're there to do, which is educate students. We have the programs, we have the courses, we have the balanced presentation of speakers. We have all of the different kinds of programming to provide balance to hate speech. Now, nobody has focused on anything but the speech. It's as if someone had come from nowhere, given a speech in a vacuum.
Normally what happens, and I can tell you from my experience in the news media, that we play up what is sensational.
Of
we
course.
play up whatever is different. That is what's news. And in fact, whenever everything is normal, then nobody notices it.
Exactly.
And when everything is positive, in the case of what a Hispanic college president is doing, nobody notices until you get the kind of controversy that you're involved in right now. But isn't multicultural education, which is something that you're very proud of having at your university, supposed to deal with that problem? Isn't part of multicultural education creating a better understanding of all these groups?
Well, that's our mission. Our mission is to bring together different groups of individuals who will learn to live harmoniously with respect for the differences and an appreciation of the sameness, right? That's what multiculturalism is. There's been a lot of talk about hate speech doesn't have a role in multiculturalism. They're right. Hate speech doesn't have a role anywhere. And the fact that Muhammad spoke at Kane College has nothing to do with our multicultural community or with our commitment to educating to respect difference. The fact that he came to Kane College is simply our commitment to support the First Amendment. It has nothing to do with our commitment to multiculturalism.
Let's get back to the First Amendment. What you're really saying is that we should not forbid anyone from speaking at a college campus. You said that preventive measures have been taken in case something like this happens again.
Yes.
What do you mean by those preventive measures?
Well, we now have in written policies some of the things that we just had as standard practice. Much has been done about the frisking. Now we have a written policy that says there will be no frisking. The cost of any additional measures of security will have to be borne by the sponsoring organization. We have a contract that's very clear about who pays whom for what and who is sponsoring the activity. We have literally been forced to go back and dot every I and cross every T. That doesn't mean that the policies weren't there. They were there. And I think if I have any message to my colleagues is you can never underestimate the unexpected, because we felt very positive that we had all of the policies and all of the procedures that were correct in place.
But frisking and all those other measures that you mentioned would not stop Mr. Muhammad or anyone else for that matter from making inflammatory remarks.
Exactly. And there was no way that we could anticipate the level of hate of this particular speech. This individual has been on other campuses, has delivered other kinds of speeches, and the fact that he has done one thing doesn't preclude, obviously, the fact that he can do another. And I think that is very important for people to understand. A lot has been done and said about how terrible this was. It can happen anywhere, because you cannot pre-censure. You cannot pre-censor. You can certainly be prepared, and you can certainly respond immediately. But that's about all you can do if your policies and procedures have been followed.
So the solution, as you see it, is to basically use that freedom of expression that the First Amendment gives us, so that we can also freely condemn racist speeches.
You said something in your introduction that I firmly believe, and that the solution to hate speech is more speech, balanced speech, condemning free speech. Yes, very definitely.
Just last week at Rutgers University Law School, another group, in spite of the fact that the state has really been talking about preventing this kind of situation, at Rutgers University Law School in Newark, which is another state university, another group basically that wants to lift the embargo against Cuba, talk about the Hispanic community a little bit here, held a rally. And basically the reason the motive that they used to try to get media attention was sending out press releases in which they basically said, we expect violence. Now, how do you put a stop to something like that? This group wanted the media to come. They expected Cuban Americans to be opposed to what they were doing. This is people who favor relations with Mr. Castro. And this, basically they need attention so much, I perceive, that what they did was they expected violence. They made themselves the victims. But, you know, that's, in a way, it's also inciting violence, isn't it?
Well, as a college president and as senior level administrators, the only thing you can do is be prepared. We are now very prepared. We had a situation similar to that a few weeks back in which press releases went out, and immediately our plan just went into effect. I don't know that without the November speech, we would have been so much on the edge of preparedness. As you know, there's a Spanish idiom, no hay mal que por bien no venga. Right. That's one of those things that doesn't translate well. But basically, because this happened, we will be stronger. We are stronger. And we have done it ourselves. No one has come forward and said, you will do this. No one has come forward and suggested anything positive. We are doing what we know we have to do, and we are doing it ourselves because we know what's right. And we don't need other people to come in and tell us, you will do this.
No hay mal que por bien no venga essentially means something positive comes out of something negative, roughly translated.
Roughly translated.
Do you think that in the long run something positive will come out of what happened at King College?
It already is happening. I think the awareness that is being built in the minds of individuals about hate speech, about bigotry, about bias, is something that has to happen. It may take something as appalling as a speech to bring it out, but I believe it has to come out, because if you don't talk about something evil, if you don't talk about negative situations, if you don't talk about racism and bigotry and bias and anti-Semitism, it just festers and will explode. I really do think balanced conversations, dialogue, education is the answer.
What is being done statewide on the college and university level to prevent this, or to have more forums to deal with the situation? I've read articles where certain ideas are being tossed about.
I think you will find that although there are some statewide initiatives emerging from the legislature and the department, what is and will be most effective is what institutions will do for themselves. And I guess that was the point I was trying to make earlier. We have corrected and filled the plugs, plugged the holes in our policies that existed. We've done it. We have been actively involved in a series of very effective speakers. We've had Cornel West, we've had Henry Louis Gates, we've had Orlando Patterson, we've had Nat Hentoff, we've had all of these speakers over the last 2 years. We have 3 courses on prejudice reduction that are on the books already for the spring and the fall, and we're going to be developing more with the help of the departments. We have the Human Relations Center, which is programming. We have a Kane College Community Council. If you took all of our scheduling, and I welcome anyone to do this, you will find that either from a departmental level, from a student level, from an administrative level, we have at least minimum of 1 activity a week that deals with diversity. This is our mission, after all. We have got to educate our students to be aware of the diverse world in which they live, to respect difference, and to acknowledge sameness.
Earlier in the program, you mentioned that the only group that Mr. Mohammed did not attack was Hispanics. But that doesn't mean that Hispanics are immune from racist attacks. It happens quite often by very prominent figures, maybe, again, not being racist, but insensitive toward the Hispanic community. People like Bobby Knight, the famous basketball coach who went to Puerto Rico and insulted half the island, at least half the island, making some insensitive remarks. Mario Cuomo, a few years ago, made insensitive remarks about Puerto Ricans in New York. Several others. The list goes on and on about the prominent people who have maybe had a slip of the tongue at some point or another. The latest being Ross Perot, for example, even in the debate with Vice President Gore, Larry King debate, where he said that the greatest thing a Mexican can aspire to. He's trying to put down the NAFTA agreement with Mexico, but he doesn't have to put Mexicans down in the process. He said the greatest thing Mexicans can aspire to is having their own outhouse. How do you respond to this kind of comments about our own Hispanic community?
If I were 30 years younger, I could tell you how I would have responded with anger. I think living as a Hispanic and as a woman, you kind of come to the point where you say, I don't have the energy to deal with your stupidity. I have too many important things to do. And you move on. I had if I can share this anecdote with you, I had a very, very witty friend who, when she came to college, was asked by some of her classmates, she was from Puerto Rico, and this person came up to her and very shyly said, hasn't it been tough to get used to wearing shoes? And my friend, who without batting an eye, said, not as tough as having to leave behind my grass skirt.
That's great.
Now the person who asked happened to visit Puerto Rico to take a cruise a couple of years later and came back incensed. How could you lie to me? She said, I didn't lie to you. You were being stupid. I was just letting you be yourself.
That's very good.
So I think with time, anyone who is a woman and a minority, Hispanic, whatever, your attitude, your response changes. The anger and the hurt are always there.
Briefly, we only have a minute, but what advice would you give other Hispanic women who want to follow in your footsteps into higher education?
Stick with it, get your credentials, network, and do it. It's a wonderful field to be in, and it's open, and I think like many fields, it's a particularly exciting area for Hispanic women to be in.
Thank you very much, and if there's one thing that we Latinos have to be grateful for is living in a country where there is freedom of expression. We who come from many countries in Latin America where we have lived under dictatorships, we here have a freedom that, although sometimes creates problems, we have to protect.
And we must cherish it.
It's a pleasure having you here. We wish you good luck.
Thank you.
I'm Miguel Perez, and I'll see you next week on another edition of Images, Imágenes. Hasta pronto.
Miguel Perez's column appears every Sunday and Wednesday in The Record, North Jersey's daily intelligence report. The Record, proud supporter of NJN.